Some cold weather baseball coming up here in Greenville and across the land as the ECU Pirates get ready to get underway in February for games. But the practices, things like that, have gotten underway now. And we're going to talk to ECU pitching coach Austin Knight, who joins us here inside the Pirate Radio studios. Coach, appreciate your time. How you doing today, man?
Doing awesome, man. I appreciate you having me on. Excited to talk some baseball. And you're right about the cold weather part of it. It hadn't been bad yet, but you know how it gets.
Yeah, I think I talked to JC about it last week. I'll ask you as a player and now a coach, how do you balance the, man, I'm so excited to get going for another year with the, man, it's freaking brutal out here. But, what's that like for you?
You try not to think about it too much. As a player, I think it was more of the build-up going into the practice or the game. It was like, oh, it's going to be really cold, and then the game starts, and you don't think about it anymore. Now, from the coaching side of things, I'm in the dugout the whole time. So it's not like I'm running to first base. I'm not, on the field or anything like that. So I have to layer up a little bit in the dugout, and so it's not as fun from the coaching side of things. But as a player, you don't think about it too much.
Let's talk about your background a little bit as a player and coming up as a pitching coach. Is it, I don't know, unique to see catchers in a pitching coach position? They obviously go hand in hand, but I don't know, how unique is that in the world of baseball?
I think it's, not super unique.
Yeah.
My head coach in college, Mike Bianco, he was a catcher as well. I want to say Skip Burtman, who he was actually his head coach when he played. He was also a catcher. So I think it just depends, right? Now, with the background, my dad was a left-handed pitcher, and he was also a high school baseball coach for 30 years and won a bunch of state championships. So he was always on the pitching side of things and teaching pitching. And he is, just as far as work ethic goes, he was always working to kind of be on the front end of the pitching spectrum, always learning and trying to grow from that standpoint. So I took a ton from him. And then, of course, coaches that I coached with throughout the course of my career, and have been fortunate to be around some really, really good pitching minds and pitching coaches, and learned a lot from them. And, of course, you develop your own style and the things that you like to do and how you like to train guys. And but as far as as catchers, pitchers, I just think from a catching perspective, you see so much from your position. You have to learn about the entirety of the game, not just what you're doing back there. You got to learn about how the infielder should be moving, and of course pitchers and then catchers, and then of course you're talking to the pitchers and learning them and the psychology of them. And so it's just I like to think that the catchers are usually the more well-rounded players on the field,
which is why we see them in that managerial role a lot here at ECU, of course, with Cliff, but in Major League Baseball over the years, a ton of catchers.
Absolutely, yeah, and some really, really good ones. And of course, Coach Godwin being our head coach, he's seen a lot of it and played a lot of different roles as an assistant, and of course as a player. And so that's I think that background is certainly a big piece of why he does such a tremendous job with our team.
Austin Knight joining us, Pirate Radio Studios. If you have a question for Coach, you can get it in Facebook, YouTube, or X, and we will pass that along. I talked to Danny Beal last week about how you work with the pitchers and that open line of communication, that if they've got something, they're not afraid to come to you. Obviously, it's your job to tell them what they're doing wrong, what they need to improve on. But how individualized can you be with the pitcher where you're not giving the same kind of, tutelage across the board? You're breaking it down to each individual.
Yeah, I think is what we strive to do with every guy in our program, especially on the pitching side of things, is that you don't want them to ever feel like they're having to, be the other guy that's standing across from them. They want to have their own individual plans, and we're going to coach them a certain way. Now, obviously, it has to fall within the structure of our program and what we're doing, but it all starts with the relationships with the players, which starts in recruiting, of course, and watching them and constantly talking with them and getting videos from them and just working their way through it and getting them to understand what we value here. And then when they get here, man, it's you're just learning them when they're freshmen, right? You're learning them, getting them integrated into our system, and then learning what they do well, learning what they don't do so well, and then making plans for each guy. And so it is very individualized for us. Each guy their bullpens are structured different ways than the guy standing next to them. Their throw throwing programs are structured different ways than the guy standing next to them. What they're doing in the weight room is different than, Trey Savage and Wyatt Lunsford Shinkman. They have different strengths and different weaknesses, so they're doing different things on a daily basis. And so that's something that we're always reaching for and trying to make sure that our guys are really diving into their strengths and becoming their own best pitcher. And so, yeah, I think it's all obviously with the relationship piece of it, it's an ongoing conversation all the time. And like Danny said, that it is an open line of communication. There's guys in my office all the time. And with those older guys, once you get them in the system and you get them to understand who they are as a pitcher and how they are going to get hitters out and what they need to do, at that point it's more fine-tuning and of course, striving to maybe gain more velocity or make the slider move a little bit more or whatever it may be. But with the freshmen, it's more ground zero, work them up, get them ready. And then, of course, over time, they become, you see some of these older guys.
I want to ask you about some of these pitchers, and I'm not going to start with Trey Savage or Zach Root. I'm going to start with my guy, Danny Beal. We've gotten to know him and just a great personality, and gave you credit for adjusting the arm angle and him still being able to pitch at a high level. What is he going to bring to the bullpen this year? How important is a guy like Beal in the staff?
Oh, he's so important because he can serve a multitude of roles. He can go long relief, he can go short relief, he can close out a game. Heck, I would even start him if we really needed it to. It's one of those things that he just can. I think about Garrett Saylor and kind of what he did in our program the last couple of years. I think that he is very similar to Danny in that way. And Danny is just unique because there's so many different pitches, and so obviously the arm slots are shifting, and he's able to throw a ton of strikes with it, and it's good stuff to go along with it. And so you got to have a guy like that in your bullpen. And the thing that's really good about him being able to switch slots and throw sidearm and do some different things is you don't want everybody in your bullpen to look the same.
Yeah.
I thought we ran into some trouble with that in the bullpen last year. And I actually think that's why a part of why Danny had such a good year is because we had a lot of power arms in the bullpen with a really good slider, and they kind of were similar, and with Danny being able to come in and switch the pace up, I think that gave some offensive fits. So I see him serving a very similar role, and he's just continued to improve over the last 6-7 months as well.
Jamie on YouTube, as we'll go to Trey Savage here, he says, is Trey Savage the best pitcher Austin Knight has ever coached? Also, what makes him so good and well known nationally?
Well, Gavin Williams is coming back to town tomorrow to throw a bullpen, so I better not.
He's all right.
I think it's definitely a toss up, between those two guys. I will say Trey was probably better from just the pitchability type deal from an earlier stage. Gavin really was just the power fastball for a long time until really his draft year. But Trey was able to pick up pitches a lot quicker and execute them and throw the ball into the strike zone quicker. But what makes him, obviously he's a tremendous arm, and I don't want to take any credit away from him by any means. But the thing that makes him special in itself is, of course, it's really good stuff, but he throws a ton of strikes, and his secondary pitches are elite, and they grade out on a major league level at a really high level. But he's coachable, and he's tough, and the makeup is outstanding, and he can handle situations. I think you saw it really his freshman year when we're throwing him out there in bases loaded situation, and he's punching out the side coming off the field, and you saw a guy that could really handle himself on the mound in the biggest situations. And then when you have that side of things, you have the mentality side, you have the mental side, and of course you have a lot of talent, it turns into something special over time.
You mentioned earlier freshmen kind of coming into the ground floor, and hey, we'll kind of take it slow with them. Zach Root came on pretty quick and was a huge part of what ECU did pitching in 2023. What improvements did you want to see from him from freshman to sophomore year?
I think just the quality of strikes, and then he needed to really work on his breaking pitches. He came in, and of course you notice immediately it's a high level of talent and fastball velocity, and the changeup's really good. But he always had trouble just spinning a breaking ball or a slider or whatever. Well, he went out in the summer and he pitched this summer and he's fixed that issue. He now has 2 breaking balls. He's got a good curveball and he's got a good slider cutter to go with it. And so he is, and he's put on weight. He's gotten stronger and he's commanding the baseball in the strike zone. It's not just control over command. He's commanding his fastball to both sides of the plate. The secondaries are in the zone a lot more, and so I think that really helped with added strength and then just focusing on those things. But he's looked really good early on, so definitely excited about him.
A guy I feel like I could see making a big jump, and maybe we've already seen it. He's a household name with Pirate fans now, but Wyatt Lunsford-Shankman last year, 49 Ks to 13 walks. ERA was over 4. Record was 4-2. How about Wyatt? Do you see him being a big part of the staff this year?
Yeah, he's a stud. He's a stud. He's also worked very hard, and he's refined some things, and as excited about him as anybody on our staff. At this point, man, he's been in a lot of big situations, big games. He's another guy similar to Danny that I feel like can serve a lot of roles. But one thing is for sure is that he has the right mentality to be out there, and he is throwing the ball into the strike zone at an extremely high level. His stuff has gotten better. The slider's gotten better. The changeup's gotten better. The fastball is sinking and running more than it ever has, and he's throwing it as hard or harder than he ever has. And so, I think the sky's the limit for that kid, and yeah, I think he's going to be a huge part of our success this year.
We're talking about some great returners on this staff, but you are losing some guys: Josh Gross, Carter Spivey, Landon Ginn, Tyler Brott, to name a few. Garrett Saylor, of course, and all the innings he ate up the last couple years and great games he pitched in. So let's get to some newcomers, Coach. Who are you excited about as far as newcomers?
Yeah, I think that there's quite a few of them. Our freshman class from Ethan Norby, Parker Thomas, J.D. Little, Corey Costello, really all those freshmen they're coming along, and I could see them serving a role. Now, what's that look like? We'll see, but they're definitely talented enough to help us win a lot of games. And then you look at the guys we brought in out of the transfer portal, Drew Bryan, Chris Kaler, Aaron Groller, guys like that. They're all just older guys who have been in the fight, they've been in the mix, and know what we expect, to be honest. And so, yeah, we've lost a good bit, and those are some really talented and good arms. 4 of those guys are pitching in professional baseball now. Yeah. But with the guys that we've got coming back, I think we have a really good, strong group of guys coming back. Even guys that maybe haven't held it as big of a role as some others. But you talk about Jaden Winter and Eric Ritchie and all those guys. Those are guys who have made big jumps from the spring last year. And so I think the combination of those guys with those young freshmen who are improving, and it's just more about getting those freshmen in the right situations and not just throwing them into the fire as quickly as possible. Let's give them some confidence and continue to bring them along so that at the end of the season they can be big difference makers for us.
Yeah, one of those guys in the pros you're talking about, Carter Spivey, who we will talk to Friday here on Pirate Radio Live. You said you were fired up when he told you that news earlier.
Yeah, he called. We actually had bullpens. It was on Tuesday. We were inside and we had bullpens going, and Spivey called me right as we were about to start up, and I saw it and I was like, this has to be important, because he wouldn't be calling me. He knows that we've got bullpens rolling and doing different things. And I answered the phone and told him, hey man, we got some bullpens going. What's going on? And he said, I won't take long, but the Guardians just offered me a contract and I'm taking it. And I just I got chills, because that kid has worked extremely hard and he has a really cool story, and he's overcome a lot to get to where he is now. And even after last year, the kid goes out and he pitches an independent ball and he pitches extremely well and he continues to work his tail off, and I just I couldn't be more excited for him and his opportunity. I think he's going to thrive. I think he's going to do really well in professional baseball.
It is a fantastic story, and how you can overcome and how you can't write off a guy, because I knew I made a tweet about it. It was May 23rd, 2022. In 2019, Carter Spivey made 7 appearances, had an ERA of 19.5. 2022 Pitcher of the Year. So I think you can show that to anybody struggling and say, hey, guys, this ain't the end of the road. You got time to make this up, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the story of him just finding himself, you know, and he went out in 21 and, you know, in 21 he just didn't really pitch well for us and went out in summer ball and, you know, figured some things out, came back with the cutter that honestly made in 2022 made him the Pitcher of the Year for us. And he grew in confidence and his stature out there and everything that he did. But it is a really unique story, and it's one of those deals. It's good for even coaches to hear because, hey, sometimes we just need to stick it out with kids, and you don't have to, you know, close the book because you don't never know when you know what day it might click for a kid that really helps them take the step forward.
You mentioned summer ball. I bring this up every time, but Alec Burleson had a good freshman year here at East Carolina, then went and played summer ball and was like the Babe Ruth of the Cal Ripken League, and just never stopped hitting after that. Something similar maybe with Dixon Williams and some guys this past summer. But it feels like we're talking to guys, they're really loose and they're playing, but at the same time getting better and probably gaining confidence.
Right.
And you kind of touched on that a moment ago. Is that something that summer ball can really serve a purpose there, getting a player confidence?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell a lot of kids this, that the freshman year is such a toss-up a lot of times just because, you know, you're away from home for the first time. You got all these coaches who are extremely demanding and asking you to work harder than you've ever worked in your whole life, and then also in the classroom and in everything that you're doing. And, you know, a lot of kids, that takes a toll on it. Myself, it took a toll on my freshman fall, you know, when Coach Godwin was an assistant, just riding my tail like a rented mule, you know. And so it just takes time to really figure yourself out. And you know, you go into the spring and some of these kids, they may not get consistent at bats. They may not get consistent innings. Well, this is the time that they can go out and they're going to get consistent innings. They're going to get consistent at bats, and they've left here, you know, our place, and they know what we expect and what they need to get better at and all those things. And so they can be very focused on the details of those things. But it's like you said, summer ball is different. It's a very loose environment for the majority of places, and you're going to be in the lineup every day if you go over for the day before or whatever. And so you're constantly working on things and getting better. But I think the majority of times when guys go out and play in the summer and they come back, they're different players. And a lot of times it just has to do with confidence.
And I think it's set up beforehand, right, as far as how many innings you want a guy to get and things like that. So how much are you in contact with these summer coaches, with your guys?
A ton, and of course with the players as well. Really weekly with the players after their outings, talking to them, understanding what went well, what didn't went well, what we're working on, getting me video, different things like that. And then we talk to the coaches, you know, I mean, 7, 8, 10 to 10 months in advance. You know, we actually set these kids up with where they're going to go play in August. Okay. And so we have a lot of prior relationships with the people that we send the players to as well. And so constantly in contact with both sides of it, of course, and just continuing to build the relationships with the players and get to know them and you know, help them as they grow in our program.
I like to ask guys this, as a player, what was your favorite time playing baseball? And I mean, that could go to Little League, it could go, you know, to high school, Legion, travel, summer, college. Yeah. What was your favorite time in your life playing ball?
I've been lucky. I've been lucky to be a part of some really good teams. So my dad was my high school coach. We won 4 straight state championships in high school and had won 67 games in a row at one point. And so I had a group of guys that literally I grew up playing with from the time I was, you know, 8 years old until I was 18 years old.
That's awesome.
And so that was a pretty unique time, and we were very good and won a lot. And then got to be a part of the team in 2014 that went to Omaha with Ole Miss for the first time, and I can't even remember how many years. And that year in itself was very special to accomplish that goal with a bunch of older players and, you know, a coaching staff that had worked extremely hard and been on the verge a lot. And so, you know, those years are the ones that when I think about my playing days, they're irreplaceable, you know. And when I finished my career, I was like, you know, I'm good. You know, I don't need to go chase the free agency. I know I want to coach, but you know, you're going from a really special place, playing at Ole Miss in front of 10,000 people to playing in the backfields in Florida. I'm like, nah, I'm good on that. I've had you know, I've had some really cool experiences, so I was good at that point.
Man, you see, like the UCLA basketball winning streaks and these winning streaks in football, that's one thing, but baseball with all the, you know, you got different arms on the mound. You're not hitting the ball one day to win that many games in a row. I don't think I've ever heard that.
I know
before.
it's a state record in Mississippi, and that's my dad he was a tremendous coach and instilled a ton in me as far as work ethic goes, and he was the first guy that's talking about detail orientation, and he was on us all the time because he knew we could be good. I remember us 10 run rolling teams and us running after the game because we didn't execute a bunt in the second inning or something like that, and so a lot of credit has to be given to him for that.
Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll have another segment with Austin Knight if you want to get a question in. Got a question here about MLB scouts at college games, and we'll pass that one along to Coach Knight and talk more Pirate baseball when we return on Pirate Radio Live. Back with you, Pirate Radio Live. We got Shirley Rhodes. We got the former long snapper, Chandler Honeycutt. We got the current long snapper, Alex Harper, intern Alex. And we got the pitching coach of the Pirates, Austin Knight, joining us here inside the Pirate Radio studios. Got a few questions on Facebook and YouTube that we'll get to. And this is more of a comment, I guess. A comment and a question. Johnny Stat says, I watched Cam Clonch strike out 5 batters in 2 innings in the Valley League in 2021. Did he ever try to pitch here at East Carolina?
Yeah, he pitched at least in 2 falls that we had. And, he threw a ton of strikes. He's in the mid-80s as a left-hander. But he just kind of had some arm issues early on. And so at that point, you start prioritizing how he's going to help us more. And that was with the bat, of course. And so he actually pitched a little bit last fall just because we didn't have a ton of left-handers, just to give some looks for our guys because we were so left-handed heavy at the plate. Needed him to see some more left-handers. Right. So he pitched a little bit and did fine. But he has not pitched this year, and I don't envision him pitching this year, but hey, who's to say?
Well, Coach Godwin, yourself, this staff recruits athletes and very versatile guys, right? You like guys that can do different things. So how about on this year's roster, any two-way guys for you?
Yeah, Colby Wallace is a freshman, plays corner infield and pitches as well. Also, a really good hitter, but strong physical kid, and he's really got a future on both sides of it, I think. He's at the plate. He's got a ton of power and really good on the infield and an accurate arm. And on the mound, he's low 90s with a breaking ball and a good cutter and a developing changeup and throws a ton of strikes. And so, another guy that you probably will see in the mix because he's a competitive kid and handles himself well.
Yeah, and you got to do that if you're going to go both ways. I mean, it's hard enough to hit the ball, hard enough to get a guy out to do both. How do you make sure you're not kind of giving a guy too much in that situation?
Just by prioritizing. Early on in the fall, we didn't do a ton with him pitching-wise just because we wanted to see him at third base and see him on the infield and see him play. But this early spring, we have been more, focused on the pitching side of things. Not to say he's not doing everything on the hitting side, but he's closer to a normal pitching plan with him throwing multiple bullpens during the week. And when he's doing that, he's not throwing as much across the infield with Coach Palumbo. And so he's still getting ground balls and all that. It's just the throwing is less involved across the infield and just more on a normal throwing plan that the pitchers would do.
Kurt asking, what is the plan for midweek arms this season? Said last season we struggled in the midweek against quality competition. What is the plan, Coach?
Yeah, I think that will develop over time. As we get into the spring inter squads and different things like that. I think going into last year, you thought Garrett Saylor was going to be a big reliever, but for the most part, he ended up turning into a starter and throwing in the middle of the week. The most important thing is that we have options, which we do, and it could be a situation where it depends on what happens on the weekend. You throw one of your better bullpen arms as a starter in the middle of the week, or you could start freshman or one of the transfers, but I do think that we have plenty of options that are quality to go out there and pitch in the middle of the week.
It's very rare, I mean, hell, even in the big leagues, but certainly on the college level and here at East Carolina, that your starting weekend rotation is the same as it is in, March, April, May.
Yeah.
Due to injury, due to performance, due to young guys getting better and all that. So you got to be kind of coaching on the fly in some ways, right? Making sure you have the right guys in the right spot as the season goes along. Just because it starts that way in February doesn't mean it's always going to be.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. And that's, obviously you're just reading how guys are doing and are they healthy? Are they feeling good? Are they effective? Are they continuing to go in the right direction that you want them to? And so it's, ideally, I think we'd all like to have 4 set starters and they all throw 7 innings and you have a closer that closes every game.
It's not a video game, though, right?
It's not. And you see it in the big leagues as well. I just think it's funny because as soon as you hit the playoffs, the starters don't throw more than 5 innings ever, and of course it's a long season and a little bit different than college, and of course you want your starters to pitch deep into the game, especially on the front end of a weekend. But the reality is that you're probably not going to have 4 or 5 guys that can throw 7 innings every single time that they go out there, and so that's why you have to have 15, 14, 13 quality arms that can go each innings and pitch quality innings, like you said, in the middle of the week, because we're going to play good teams in the middle of the week. We're going to play good teams on the weekend. They're all important. And so, I think that it's all about who's feeling good, who do we use on the end of the weekend, who can start the game, who do we need in the middle of the game, and who do we need to close the game. And we will throw the best available arms, that's for sure, because we want to win those games.
Seems like Cliff's philosophy has not had, go to one big time shutdown, Trevor Hoffman closer. Right. It's kind of closer by committee. Is that kind of the way you plan on doing it this year?
Yeah, I think that you have to, you need to understand that the game can be won and lost in the 5th inning. It can be won and lost in the 6th inning. Yeah. Of course, it can be won and lost in the 9th inning as well.
So you'll send your best guy out there in a key spot.
Yeah, you don't ever want to lose a game leaving your best bullet in the chamber, right? You want to empty that out and make sure that we're in the game towards the end and that our offense has a chance to win the game, or that we can finish that thing out. And that's where you've seen in the past where, our best bullpen guy, he may go in the 6th and he may finish the game. He may finish the game or bridge us to the 9th, and you go to the next best guy, depending on the matchups. And of course, that just depends on the game and who started the game and who's pitching and what kind of matchup we have and what kind of look we want to give the opposing offense and what they're trying to do to us. I mean, there's a ton that goes into that.
Question from Jamie on YouTube. Interesting. Do the coaches know when MLB scouts are at the games? If so, do you get a heads up? Do you relay that to the players? Do you have a conversation at all? Like, what's that?
No, I mean, we know in the fall that they're coming because Coach Palumbo will send out an email just to communicate with them to make sure that our guys are being seen. But outside of that, they may ask about certain guys when they may be pitching, right? When are they going to pitch Friday? They going to pitch Saturday? But I don't think we necessarily know that they're at the game unless we talk to them during BP. I mean, they're there from the time we hit BP until, of course, the end of the game. And as far as addressing it with our players, it's not really talked about. No. I mean, that's just part of being a part of a good program, is that you're going to be seen, you're going to have scouts in the stands, and they're going to be watching you. And so you don't want to make that a big deal because we're a team, we're playing for each other, not for the people, the scouts in the stands.
High school coaches, showcase coaches, obviously are in the ear of college coaches saying, "Hey, you got to see this guy. You got to check out this guy." Does that go up a level? Like, do you know people from organizations saying, "Hey, this Spivey guy, you got to give him a shot"? Or are you out there talking about your guys?
Of course, now to a lower level, of course. But these scouts are always asking about guys, and of course, we're pushing guys that like Spivey that we feel like should be given an opportunity. Now, does that mean they're always going to listen to us? No, of course not, right? And even with the Guardians this time, I had talked to the Guardians guy a while back about Spivey, and so I actually didn't see this coming down the pipeline, and I think that Spivey had a pro day and he sent them some video and they're like, yeah, we'll give you a shot, let's roll, and so you of course have people in the industry that you trust and of course that trust you, and so you're communicating with them and trying to give our guys the best shot to move forward and advance their careers.
I asked Jeff Palumbo this the other day just about all the success East Carolina has year in, year out. You got to flip it and it's a whole new year, and how do you stay hungry? And gave a pretty good obvious answer, that main carrot's still out there, getting to Omaha. So how about yourself with all the success that this team has had, the pitching that has had over the years? How do you stay hungry? How do you just keep motivated for the next year?
Well, I think it starts with exactly what Coach Palumbo said. We set out with a goal every single year to win a national championship, and unfortunately, if you don't do that, there's only one team that gets to do that. But that goal is still out there moving forward, and it will be even if you win a national championship. So it's something that you're chasing, and it's as far as that goes, it's probably unattainable to really be satisfied with. But as far as from the day to day and all that stuff, I just think that it's just a hunger within our coaching staff, within our team, just to be the very best that you can possibly be on any given day. Right? It's just the constant chase of excellence and pursuing just being the best version of yourself. And so, of course, we all want to win a national championship, but ultimately, I think we all want to be just the best versions of ourselves and want to be as good as we can possibly be. And we want our players to be as good as we can possibly be. And so, that's what gets us out of bed is that, we have a bunch of 18 to 22, 23-year-olds that are in a very crucial time in their life, and we want them to be the best human beings, the best baseball players, the best students, the best husbands, the best fathers. And that, to me, is where, that's where satisfaction comes from more than anything.
Yeah, I tell Coach Godwin this, and I've interacted with some pitchers, Wyatt and Danny, and I hadn't even brought up Jake Hunter, the dancing man. Yeah. But all just great guys, and I think that says a lot about the players you are bringing into this program.
Yeah, and Coach Palumbo, of course, being the recruiting coordinator, does an outstanding job on the front end of that, of making sure that the kids are hard workers and diligent and good students and exactly, a good fit. And then, but that's important. That's extremely important to all of us, because you don't want to be around a bunch of kids that you don't like that are talented, that maybe don't mesh into your culture and all that stuff. I mean, for me, I want to show up to the field and love the kids that I'm going to be around and enjoy being around them and be able to cut up with them while we're working hard and getting them better. And so, that of course is on the front end of things. And then with, Coach Godwin and the way that he runs his program, these kids are just going to become better men and better leaders in society. And so they become very enjoyable kids to be around.
And man, just talking about that, I went back thinking about a Lane Hoover, a Garrett Saylor. Like, you want Lane to hit the ball, but even if he strikes out 20 times in a row, or Saylor gives up 8 home runs in a row, they're still going to help your team some way, just because of the guys they are. Now, luckily, they were also good ball players, but just great guys. And we see those guys leave the program, and you're like, man, who's going to fill those shoes? Well, it's about the culture. Every year, somebody is filling those shoes.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool. And I think that's, any organization, it has to have that a little bit, is that when these pivotal leaders, they leave the team or leave the organization, and they're through attrition or graduation or whatever it may be, you have people that they had an impact on that want to have that impact on younger players or the new coming players. And then, over time, whenever you have that type of leadership within your program, it just continues to go. Now, you still have to work on it every single day. You still have to work on it and make sure that we're holding true to our standards and holding each other accountable. But whenever these kids are self-driven to be leaders and to help the people standing next to them that are wearing the same jersey than them, you've got something that's really special.
Jamie on YouTube brought up, said Austin and the coaches did a good job going into the postseason last year, getting Ginn to speed up his routine. There was a lot of talk about that. So that was a new rule last year. I guess this year, do you have a physical clock?
Yeah.
Okay. In the stadium.
And so we'll have one on the scoreboard and I believe behind home plate.
Did any big problem with that last year for you, being in year one?
Just in the conference tournament, really. I mean, we really pride ourselves on having good tempo and being fast paced. And you think about college football and the no huddle offense and things like that. It's what you want to think about whenever you're pitching within reason. You want to be in control of yourself, but we want to have that sort of pace that makes the hitter uncomfortable and keeps our defenders engaged. But yeah, Landon sure was taking his sweet time in the conference tournament. Had to strike out a couple guys multiple times to get the last out, and so that's just typical Landon for you, honestly. It's just one day he's doing it slow, one day he's doing it fast, one day he's who knows, he's standing on his head. He's a special character, and I love that kid. I was so thrilled that he was a part of our program last year, and it worked out where he could come back and we could help each other out. And I talked to him yesterday. He's a guy that's constantly reaching out, and so but that was a frustrating 10 minutes for sure in that conference tournament. I think Coach Godwin's yelling out, "Throw the ball, throw the ball in."
So that was a new rule going into last year. I've seen some changes. I don't think it affects anything you got going on as far as walk-up music for a regional, as far as I think the new parameters on RPI and how that's determined. Yeah. Anything on the field? Any rule changes?
No, nothing yet. I mean, just some things that they're going to, keep an eye on. Of course, 20-second clock, pitcher delivery positions, different things like that. But nothing new other than, like you said, the walkout. What would your walkout song be?
I'm usually asking that, but I think my answer would be maybe the NWO theme, that's wrestling theme.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think a wrestling theme gets a good crowd pop.
Yeah.
So I think maybe NWO. How about yourself? What did you have one in college?
I had a bunch of them. I mean, I can barely remember them now. I did No Diggity one year.
A little Blackstreet.
Yeah, I did The Way You Move as well.
Outkast.
Man. Yeah, I like music, so I feel like I got a decent taste in music. But now I have no idea. It'd probably be some old school rap though.
Well, I was gonna say I know those songs. I don't think I know any music made after that. No. Like at a certain point in time, I just kind of gave up.
Stopped.
Yeah. Alex,
me too.
If they had walkout music, so ECU is going to punt. They have walkout music for the long snapper. What would you choose?
Let me go John Cena's theme song.
All right. Yeah.
That's an easy one.
You play any baseball in your day?
I played baseball all up until high school.
Okay. What position?
And then I played first base and pitched.
All right. Big guy. Put him over at first.
Yeah, pretty
perfect.
Yeah.
Wasn't very fast.
How about you? What other sports did you play?
I played basketball. My uncle's a college basketball coach in Mississippi, NAIA. Winning his college basketball coach in the history of Mississippi.
You were destined to be a coach, it sounds like.
Yeah, my grandfather was a college football coach as well.
There you go.
It was just in the blood. And
That's awesome.
I remember talking to my grandmother about what I wanted to do for a living, and I was just going through all these things, and she just looked at it. She stopped me and said, "You're going to coach." I said, "Yes, ma'am."
There you go.
But I played basketball, and then I played a little bit of football. When I was younger and when I first got into high school, but I just realized very quickly that I wasn't that athletic and I wasn't that good at any of these sports, and I probably need to focus on doing something that's going to help me pay for college one day.
Although I've heard Cliff talk about it, he likes guys that play other sports, like maybe not as super into it as baseball, but guys that are versatile.
Yeah, like he definitely does. We all do, right? And so maybe that's why I'm here, right? I'm a multi-sport athlete at some point in my life, so I get you to coach at East Carolina.
Austin, thank you for hanging out, man. We'll catch up with you again on Media Day coming up in a couple Mondays from now, and looking forward to the season. But I appreciate you joining us today, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me. I had fun.
Yes, sir. Austin Knight, ECU pitching coach, joining us.